Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our great diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our great platinum sponsors, including Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. And Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Thanks to all of our great sponsors.
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast, today featuring the FIAAA Insider. Our guest today is a good friend, Kelly Blount. Kelly is a certified athletic administrator. He's the director of athletics at Atlantic Coast H.S. in Jacksonville, Florida. Also very active. He was a longtime member of the FHSAA Sectional Appeals Board, and he's currently a member of our FIAAA Board of Directors as a district director. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Well, we're excited to hear what's going on in your corner of the state, so let's jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and maybe how your love of sports led to a career in athletic administration.
Sure. Well, I'm a Navy brat, I guess, growing up. My family is originally from Virginia and from Southeast Virginia. And so we moved around quite a bit. Was fortunate to live in some places like Hawaii and Florida for most of my life. So this is pretty much where we made our home as a family in Jacksonville. I went to high school here for the most part. And then after high school and playing football and basketball mostly, I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to Eastern Kentucky University, where I played football. Played linebacker for Hall of Fame coach Roy Kidd, and enjoyed that greatly. The whole time I was in college, I was interning for a bank, actually, back when I came home during the summers, Barnett Bank, which was a big Florida bank at the time. And so my main career path really was the finance area. My degrees in economics, and then later, once I started teaching, I got my master's in education leadership. But when I finished college, I had one tryout for the pros, or actually more of a Canadian team tryout. And as I said, just one, and it was fleeting. So I came back and started working in the banking industry. I spent about 12 years in banking, managing funds, working with trust accounts, managing IRA accounts, all that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff. And finally, I answered the bug that I had to get into coaching, and started teaching. I went into my high school and said, "Hey, I think I want to coach. And you have any openings? Be glad to do anything." And they said, "You want to teach?" And it was a good timing. And I said, "Well, I never really thought about that." And so I ended up getting into teaching and coaching at that point. So once I started teaching,
very interesting. I didn't know that aspect. Talk about that experience going from, the business world, as we like to say, the real world.
Right.
And I want to pick your brain about IRAs, but and transitioning into the classroom. How was that? Was it, just very smooth? Were there some speed bumps? I'm curious.
Well, it was really interesting. And as I said, I really never considered teaching and thought that I would never do that beforehand. As I said, it was perfect timing because actually it was right after, it was in 2001, which was the whole 9/11 time. And I had been moved to a sales area, and and honestly, it wasn't going well. So I started thinking I need to find something else to do. I had very young children, and I said, hey, maybe if I start teaching, at least I'll have more time with them. Summers off, that whole thing where people, talk about having summers off. So as I said, I was fortunate that I was able to move into that area. And I went started teaching ESE as well. So, again, somewhat challenging, but those opportunities are always available, it seems like. And I really, I guess, didn't think it was that much of a transition because I actually had done some training, like corporate training a little bit when I was working in some of those different areas with the bank as well. So I wasn't, so worried about standing in front of class and talking to kids and teaching and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, sometimes teaching some high school kids is easier than trying to teach adults. Well, that's very cool. You mentioned playing for, a Hall of Famer, Roy Kidd. I've actually, been on Eastern Kentucky's campus. What a gorgeous setting that is. Yeah. I'm curious, who were some of your other, I'm guessing he was probably one, who were some of your other mentors, either teachers or coaches that you might have had growing up, or possibly people that you've worked with or worked for? The expression I always use is, I still hear those voices in my head when I'm talking to a kid or a parent or something. So whose voice do you still hear? Most definitely.
Well, as you mentioned, I mean, Roy Kidd is a legend and a Hall of Fame coach. And I'm very fortunate that a lot of those coaches that I had that were on that staff are still alive and still around. And, I'm able to go back, for homecoming, those types of things, and to still see them. And of course, now with, social media, you're able to keep in touch with them. So that's really great because they really did instill a lot of the values that I have with regard to, hard work and perseverance and, just getting up and expecting to do what you have to do and doing your part, as a team member and to be successful. So, those guys, Roy Kidd, Jack Eisen, Teddy Taylor, names that I just named, but those were coaches that really had a big impact on me. Also, I'm real fortunate. My high school, one of my coaches from high school is the current AD at my high school, Joe Reynolds at Fletcher High School. He's one of my mentors as well. Honestly, he actually was my kindergarten PE teacher, his first job out of college. And then he was my position coach when I was in high school. And then he's the athletic director there now. So he's someone that I lean on, for guidance as well, and has been able to be a mentor to me as well.
Oh, what a great connection that is to the generations, for him too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
To see, all the things that you've done. Let's talk a little bit about your current position. One of the things we like to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. And I know that, you've been at Atlantic Coast now for a while, had very good success. I'll put you on the spot. What are one or two things that when you look at your department, you look at your coaches, your kids, your school, that you can say with equal parts humility and pride, boy, we really do a great job with this. What are a couple best practices at your school that you can share with our listeners?
Well, I think the one thing that I try to take pride in is our communication. I feel like that's the best thing, if you're talking about something for young ADs or, the most important thing is just that communication and open line of communication, because I have a high school son myself, and sometimes I still don't get, the information from him and relating to, a team or whatever the case may be. And so I know firsthand, what parents are going through when they ask ask, what time is the game? And the kid says, I don't know, or do you have practice? And, and I don't know. So I think just having the open line of communication and using all the available lines of communication that we have, whether we're putting something out on social media or, it's through the school's news or whatever newsletter someone's putting out, those things that we try to get all that information out there so that we answer all the questions that you have and the questions that you don't know that you have, with regard to, when things are coming up or when things are going to happen in the future and how things work, So that's one of the things that I think that I think that we do a good job of is just having good lines of communication and getting that information out there.
Oh, I would agree 100%. One of my early bosses that I had, he loved to use the phrase, we need to over communicate, with our parents. And it's just so true. So, great stuff. You mentioned that you didn't have a direct path out of college into, education and being an AD. And so my next question kind of picks up on that. Right out of college, I was teaching, I was coaching, and eventually I became an athletic director. But still, when I came to Florida, I was also at my school, I was the AD and the head football coach. And I think I did a pretty good job as an AD, but I was just so consumed with being a head coach that I didn't bother to get involved with our state association. And once I did, I just took off. And so I'm curious, not coming from, that direct path, how did you hear about, and then how did you get involved with the FIAAA and maybe talk a little bit about the process of earning your CAA?
Well, when I first, I've been with Atlantic Coast this is our 11th year as a school. So I opened the school, and then I was with at Stanton College Prep for 5 years. So those are my athletic director years. Then when I started at Stanton, we have a good group of athletic directors here in our county, and I've got a lot of knowledge there. But even coming from the corporate world, I've always been about getting more education and learning as much as you can, and continue to to grow in your field. So when I looked at what was available, the first FIAAA that I went to, I told the story at our board meeting. I don't think I knew anybody there really, and so it was a little scary, but it was an opportunity, I felt, just to meet people around the state. And so again, like I said, just the opportunity to learn, to continue to learn and be a lifetime learner is what drew me to FIAAA, and trying to learn the best practices and make connections with people around the state.
Oh, I love to hear those stories. I can still remember the first LTI course I took, and was just completely hooked. Dan Como, who's still on our board, was the teacher for that. Kelly, we've been asking our ADs all summer and now into winter. And for our listeners, we're recording this on February 16th. We've been talking to the ADs about COVID, and we've seen a tremendous range of responses across the country and even within our own state of Florida. So for our listeners, some of whom are still not doing any sports at all, share what's going on right now in Atlantic Coast and in the Jacksonville area as far as return to play, as well as return to school for you guys.
Well, it is really, as everyone knows, it's really, I guess, best term would be interesting time. Maybe you could say strange time, weird time, crazy time. I don't know, but I guess interesting time would be the best phrase. Within our county, Duval County, as I said, we have 17 public high schools. And so we all work together and follow, or in one accord with regard to, our return to play and what we call our RTAs. It's interesting because sometimes there is a little bit of a disconnect between the school and athletics with regard to students being out. Sometimes we don't hear about it until we see that the student is not, in their classes anymore, and there's a message on our system. of when they can return. And then sometimes we find out from the coach, that such and such has tested positive or is contact trace, and they're not going to be with us. So we're learning to work that two-way street between the school and front office and administration and athletics with regard to tracking and keeping track of who's coming and going, basically. Right before the holidays, it seemed like we had quite a few kids that were going out for contact tracing. So now that we've returned, with the spring practices starting up, it hasn't really. It actually seems like it's tailed off some, which is I guess the way it's supposed to be, because now we're outside doing outside sports more so than the inside basketballs and wrestling and weightlifting. So it's just been an interesting time. We try to, again, keep everyone abreast of what the situations are with regard to playing games and coming to practice, and letting people know that just because someone tests positive does not necessarily mean everything is shut down. And then also on the other side, another side of it is the whole issue with Hipaa and what you can say and can't say, and learning and teaching or learning and explaining to our coaches what they can and can't say with regard to when someone is out, or when we have a what we call a COVID situation, I guess. So all of that has been again one of those things where we're doing a whole lot more than we thought we ever would, especially in this area.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Hipaa, and we obviously, we try to follow those rules, but I would guess on any given high school campus on a given day, there's probably a dozen or more Hipaa violations.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Unintentionally, yes. But
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
We have parents that ask questions all the time about, well, should we do this or should we do that? Or I heard this. And the truth of the matter is, quite often they know more than we know, because usually a kid, tests positive or is contact tracing or is going to miss, and they get on social media right away and tell all the friends and the teammates. So, quite often, as I said, the parents know more than I know because they're getting information directly from their kid or their friends. So, it's a little frustrating sometimes with that, and they get frustrated because then they call us, and as I said, I tell them, well, again, you know more than I know, and you can say more than I can say. So, we have to work through those issues.
We got to teach those parents to over communicate.
Yeah.
From a home game management standpoint, share a little bit. How did you deal with fans for fall and winter? And how do you anticipate dealing with fans for the spring sports? I know you've got a full schedule of teams for spring.
Right. So the fall actually went pretty well. And I think that the good part was with the fall, obviously, our home events were only football and volleyball. We don't swim on campus or anything like that. But for the fall, so that kind of gave us a chance to get into the right step, get in the right mode with limited numbers, our capacity limitations, which we started out at, I think we started out at 30%. And then we actually went up to 40%. And that's where we are officially, I think at this point, is 40%. Of course, with a lot of our sports, that was never an issue, unfortunately. Only football really was that a major issue, and maybe one or two basketball games. So that wasn't that was a learning process as well. But I think the best thing that happened to us as a result of all of this is that we went to online ticketing. And I personally felt like we weren't going to get to that anytime soon because of various roadblocks. But with the COVID situation, I think that was a requirement, as is most places now. And again, that was the best thing that happened to us because now it is such a flawless and seamless process that I don't know how we went without it.
I've heard that so often on these interviews about how much online ticketing has been a benefit. And we switched over this year too at my school, and just, not having to dig out cash boxes and just, you're right. It's one of those
the greatest thing that's
consequences. It was actually a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
Kelly, I've also been asking the athletic directors since we started these back in late June, this question that kind of revolves around, social awareness, social justice. And my question has been this: how can we as athletic administrators do better in this area? How can we do a better job with our kids, our coaches, our families?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting question. I was thinking about that earlier, and I think that the main thing is that, again, listening to our athletes and what they're saying, what they're talking about, and then sharing our experiences and being able to turn it into teaching opportunities where we can really drive home the points of doing what's right and saying what's right. One of the things that I always believe is that it's always the right time to do what's right, something like that. So that's kind of how I try to live, in that it's always the right time to do the right thing. So I think when we open up and share and listen to our athletes and to everyone, then it makes for a better situation all around.
And I really appreciate you sharing. Have you folks, done anything at Atlantic, with, say, student leaders or coaches or both, in the last year or so to, maybe get these conversations going? Did you already have something in place?
Well, actually, as you said, based on the time that we're doing this now, we've had some issues that have come up in our county the past week, actually, with regard to some student protests and some student feeling that they weren't being heard. So we are, and then I've talked with one of my coaches came up recently and mentioned to me about starting a captain's club, which is something that I've thought about for a while and have looked into, but we just haven't had the opportunity to, or haven't taken the opportunity, I guess, to really move that forward. So I think this is a good time that we can get those captains together and step up and to be leaders and give them the voice to become better leaders, to the team and to the student body in general.
And there is your CMAA project right there, telling the story of how you put that together. Okay, great timing. We'll lighten things up a little bit. I always ask, what's your favorite part of the job? And I'm sure like 85% of our athletic directors have already said, oh, it's the kids. And so, yeah, of course you love the kids. But what are some other things that you enjoy most about coming to work each day at Atlantic?
Well, it's funny you say that, because my wife has said for years that she's still in the corporate world, and she is amazed sometimes, I think, at how I'm excited to go to work every day. High school starts early in the morning in most places, it does here. And, to get up and to be so peppy, I guess, to go in the morning. But what I always tell people is that I basically get to go to games for a living. And there are, as I tell the kids, there are a lot worse places to be, but as a person who has played sports all my life, again, I can't imagine a better place to be than to be going to a baseball game, or going to any type of our team events in the evening. To me, that doesn't bother me one bit, and I'd rather be doing that than sitting somewhere else in an office or doing whatever else. So, I mean, that's one of the things, is just, you get to go to athletic events, and, when you experience, the successes of your teams with them, that's the best part is, just to see kids, work hard and for them to get the payoff when they do, or to see their faces, or even more so is just when they say thank you, for making something happen or allowing it to happen, whether it's, a game that they didn't think was going to get played, or if they're successful and make it so far, or even just the possibility or the opportunity for them to be on the team. Sometimes, again, those are the best ones where kids just say, hey, thanks for, we didn't think we were going to have a team this year, or, I didn't think, I was going to make the team this year. And whether they were the star or the last one on the bench, just for them to say thank you, for being able to be there. That, to me, that's the best part.
Oh, absolutely. And again, you mentioned earlier, we get to go to work. We're paid to go to those games and sit out and watch a softball game or a track meet. And then those, I won't say rare, but those kid thank yous. Hey, thanks for coming to the game. Thanks for cheering for us. Boy, that means almost as much as the money.
Right.
Well, Kelly, this has been great catching up. You and I spent some time together on the Section 1 Appeals Board. Yes. Got to hear some stories there, but yes, we're not quite done. Mm-hmm. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. My task for you right now is you're sending out a brand new AD on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. What 3 things are going to go in Kelly Blount's athletic director toolbox?
They've got to use technology, which at this time for us, is our athletic clearance. To me, that's, again, one of the godsends for us is that, having all our paperwork online, and for people to be able to go in and basically register, and do all the paperwork and get all of their eligibility stuff done right there. To me, that's a huge one. That's right up there with ticketing almost, as far as something that they should utilize, just to alleviate themselves of having to have all that paperwork in hand and to be collecting that kind of stuff and be keeping track of it. It's one of the things that they should use. The second thing, I guess, would be to use the resource that they have in other athletic directors. None of us are some of the really smart ones, I guess, are creating new stuff, but most of us are using old stuff and stealing stuff like you should, in any profession when you find a better way to do something. And so to use those connections, there are a handful of athletic directors that I talk to almost every day, back and forth, where we're calling each other and saying, hey, how do you do this? What's that? Because you just can't keep everything up here, and you can't get to your desk all the time and everything. So just to use their resources with the other athletic directors. And then the last thing, I don't know if this necessarily qualifies, but the one thing that I've found is really important and is vital to my survival is to protect my principal. And I feel like that's where the athletic director, one of their major jobs is to protect your principal. And when you do that, you're typically going to have a really good relationship with them and support from them, to not allow there to be surprises for them, and to keep some of the issues away from them. But that's what I've thought from the beginning, is that my job is to be my principal's right hand, or have their back, or however you want to say it.
Oh, great advice. Okay. Use all the technology available, network with those ADs in your area and your state, and never forget, your job is to keep problems off your principal's desk. Okay. And if a problem comes up, give them a heads up.
Yeah, always. I've heard some principals say that they don't tell or some ADs say they don't tell their principals some things, and to me that is kind of surprising. If it's worthwhile, it's worth telling.
Oh, absolutely. It pays dividends, far beyond what you can imagine. Great advice. Kelly Blount, thanks so much for being a guest on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it.
Oh, well, we're glad to have it. To our listeners, remember, these Zoom recordings are also being uploaded to the FIAAA Educational AD podcast channel. And until our next episode, come back again. Hope you all have a great day.